to focus on spending all their money on a PC3000 and learning it, because it actually becomes, the best way for me to say this is, it's a terrible return on investment to begin with, because you need money now in a business when you first make one. And if you spend all of your time butting your head against looking at things that are in hex editors and trying to figure out how to fix something that takes 4 days, you can't make any money. You may learn something and you may become a more valuable person, but you'll be bankrupt in a year. So if you were a solid state drive company and you want to do solid state drives and you started today, you will never survive. You can't. It's impossible. I don't see any possible way for a solid state, for you to start out doing data recovery only on solid state and survive. Financially, it's impossible. None of the math works in any way I can come up with it. And I've run them all. I've written a blog on my site and I went through all the numbers. And I wrote the whole thing down, like 7 or 8 pages. And I've talked to data recovery companies all over the world that are doing it. And it's a loss leader. It keeps the client coming to you. And maybe you get lucky on 30 or 40% of them, but the rest of them are hard drives, and that's where you're making your money. You're not making your money on solid state. And if you're doing the same thing with the PC3000 at the beginning, if you're not focusing on the 85 or the 95% of the drives that you can make money on, by the time you get to those hard ones, it'll become an ethical issue at some point. You'll be like, I just can't, in good conscience, just keep turning these drives away and say I can't do this one drive, the 4 drives out of the 100 that you're going to get. And eventually you're going to want to know what happened to them. And then you'll buy a PC3000. And then you'll spend more time, but you'll already be well educated on all the other stuff. You'll be able to run through your lab and have 17 drives running all the time while you focus on this one while those are imaging. And that's fine. You'll survive that. You won't survive if that's how you start. Does that make sense? So that's the best way I can tell you from a business point of view how to do it. And there are some businesses that they're just bean counters. They don't ever look at, they don't ever do the hard stuff. They never do head replacements and platter replacements or firmware. If a drive comes in, and it's a simple thing. If you put up on your website, and they do this, I don't, but they do, I charge $50 for an evaluation. Because if you're not going to pay $50, you're not going to pay $800 for the recovery either. And so there's a couple of companies out there, and they're in the Google group, so you can talk to some of them. They have this impression, if you put up a sign that says, free evaluation, send me everything you have, then I'll tell you what I can recover, and if I cannot recover anything, there is no fee. So, and it's a good business model, because if somebody sends you 100 drives, 85 of them you're going to be able to image. So you're going to get 85 out of 100 drives, and you're going to get paid. And you're going to have 10 that are going to be hard ones that you could have done manually, and there's going to be 3 or 4 that would have been firmware. They will take the most time and cost you the most money. So if you just said, I'll take the 85, you'd make money all day long. I'll give Scott the 10 that are hard. And so that's what happens. That's literally what's going on. It's because they're getting the 85% of the easy ones. And before I started doing conferences and started talking about this and started teaching classes from 2000 to 2006, I also got the 85 of the easy ones. I made a lot of money that way. Because those 85 are the ones that take care of the other 15. I did work on the other 15, but I made the money on the 85. Now I only get the 15. So that's the only area that I'm working on, because I get all the hard stuff. Does that make sense? So if you wanted a business model, you can do the free, and you want everybody to give you everything that you can possibly get. And every time somebody sends you a couple of drives a day, by the end of the first year, you'll end up with 10 drives a day, and those 10 drives a day, you're going to get 8 of them, and you'll make money on 8 of them. And you'll have 2 that you'll just tell the client no, and you'll send it back. I mean, no foul. I mean, they can send it someplace else, but it's not being, you're not really giving them a good evaluation. You're going to say, oh, this one's more difficult, needs to go to a clean room for recovery, or needs a head replacement that we don't have, so I'll send it back to you. And then the client has to figure out what they're going to do again after they just wasted 2 weeks with you. Does that make sense? But business is business, so figure it out from that standpoint. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do now is we're going to continue on with the laptop hard drive. So inside of the box on your desk, and if you don't want to do a laptop and you want to keep doing a 3.5, that's fine. It's fine with me. The process is exactly the same, but everybody asks about laptop drives. They're easier to do. If you have trouble with 3.5s, you generally do not have a problem with the 2.5. So that's an external case. Take the thing apart, take the drive out. It'll be just like real life. If somebody had sent you a drive, this is what you get. And on your adapters, on this adapter, so you do not need power for a 2.5-inch drive. It comes off of the USB port because it only needs 5 volts. So this cable will be all that you need. And on one side of the adapter is a laptop connector and a SATA connector. Now if it's SATA, if the drive is SATA, you need power. So you'll still get power from your regular source. If it's a PATA laptop drive, then you'll be using this one side, and you just make sure that there's a key, make sure that the pin is in the right location. And so once you plug it in, then that will come up. Write data on the drive, and then start your disassembly process. The bracket that's on your bench, this side, is meant for your 2.5-inch drive, so it'll fit right here on this bracket. And there is a platter tool for 2.5. This platter tool is for 2.5. And I've not seen any 2.5-inch drives with spacers, none of them. So I've never had to use tape on them at all. This tool has worked for every 2.5-inch drive I've ever done in my whole life. That worked as best I can tell you for all of the ones I can remember. And then the last thing is the deep spar has a ribbon cable coming off of it for PATA drives, and I have adapters for those. I'm going to walk around and give everybody one for their deep spar. Okay? That way you can put the laptop drive on the deep spar when you're done to do your recovery. Everybody good? All right. Process is the same. The only thing I can tell you that's different, that I want you to do that's different, is this. This magnet right here, sometimes it's the opposite of the clam that you've been using. So like you got the crab kind of thing that was described this morning, that your magnet sits on top and pushes down. Well, it's the opposite on most laptop drives. There's a U shape on the bottom and a flat one on the top. And if you try to pull the top magnet off, you're going to pull the bottom magnet into it, because a lot of them don't have a screw or something holding them in place. Now, I don't know what drive you have with these drives that I buy at surplus places, so it's possible that yours is held down in the bottom and you don't have this problem. If you have a loose magnet and the magnet wiggles a little bit, you take a screwdriver and hold the bottom magnet down while you take the top magnet up. Don't touch the coil on the voice coil on the drive. Okay? Good. That's it. That's pretty much the only difference. If the heads are thinner and they look thinner than they do for your 3.5-inch drives, you use the Orbit's gum container to make your tools instead. There's a thinner piece of foam I showed you on the second day, and there's a Orbit's gum wrapper trash in your bag, and it's thinner material. Use those to make your head combs. Everything else is the same. Put your heads up on the ramp, take them off the ramp, put them on the drive, put your tool in, disassemble the whole thing. Okay? That's it. Yep.